recognize negative people, right? Now that's really what we after here, because sometimes they are so good at masquerading as positive people, it can be difficult for us to see through their facade. But today I'll be taking a look at 6 different signs that will help us recognize toxicity. And these are things that we should be watching out for in other people. These are 6 signs of toxicity that we need to look out for in the people around us. Now, the first sign of toxicity is being overcritical of others. Now it can come from a good place, right? Like when you care about someone, you probably also care about how they behave and the decisions that they make. And you might often advise them to do better or try harder. But when it comes from a toxic person, it usually looks like judgment, criticism, and complaint rather than helpful suggestions. And it becomes less about actually helping somebody improve and more about putting them down, right? And while a healthy amount of constructive criticism is actually important for our growth, too much of it or unnecessary criticism can be draining. It can make us feel judged and belittled, and it can affect our mental health. It's not easy being constantly corrected by someone who is always finding fault with everything that we do. When we're dealing with someone who's overcritical, we often find ourselves having to constantly defend our actions or our opinions. We start doubting our own abilities, and we may even begin to feel inadequate. And over time, this constant negativity can take a toll on our self-esteem and our overall well-being. The second sign of toxicity is avoiding commitment. Toxic people are often notorious for being flaky or unreliable. They tend to make promises without thinking them through and then either fail to follow through or change their minds last minute. You know, the kind of people who say yes to every plan but never show up. They may say they'll be there for you in the end. When push comes to shove, they're nowhere to be found. So, how do you deal with someone like this? Well, firstly, you have to accept the reality that some people are just incapable of committing to anything, and it's not your responsibility to force them to follow through on their promises. Secondly, stop making excuses for their behavior. Flaky behavior isn't cute or funny. It shows a lack of respect and maturity, and we shouldn't let people get away with it. Finally, set boundaries. Let them know that their flakiness is unacceptable and that you won't be available whenever they decide to bail on plans at the last minute. Alright. The third sign of toxicity is that they are overly sensitive. Now, everyone has emotions and everyone reacts to things in their own way, right? But a toxic person tends to be hypersensitive, and they react intensely to everyday situations. They're quick to blame others for their mistakes, and they take any criticism personally. And as a result, they can become very defensive and dismissive of other people's opinions. When we encounter someone who's overly sensitive, conversations with them can become tense and it can be hard to communicate openly and honestly, because we're always walking on eggshells around them, trying not to set them off. So, dealing with an overly sensitive person requires patience and understanding. Firstly, try to remain calm and empathetic when they get upset. Remind yourself that their reaction is not a reflection of you or your intentions. Secondly, avoid being confrontational. Instead, focus on finding common ground and working towards a compromise. Remember, the goal is not to win an argument, but to maintain a peaceful relationship. But if the sensitivity is coming from a place of insecurity or low self-esteem, then it's best to be supportive and encouraging. Let them know that you value their input and that you appreciate their perspective. Next up, we have the quitter. Now, when it comes to challenges or difficult tasks, a toxic person often prefers to quit instead of seeing it through to the end. Now, this could be a project at work or a commitment they made to a friend or maybe even a personal goal. The quitter doesn't like facing obstacles or setbacks, and they certainly do unlike having to work hard to achieve success. When faced with any difficulty, they'd rather just walk away and start fresh on something new. This behavior can be frustrating and disheartening for those around them, because it sends the message that they can't be relied upon to follow through on their commitments. If you find yourself dealing with a quitter, it's important to understand that they're not purposely trying to cause problems. Their fear of failure is so overwhelming that they would rather abandon the project altogether than risk not being successful. So if you're going to work with a quitter, it's best to set clear expectations and deadlines Give them the support they need to stay committed and help them break down tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Ultimately, success is all about perseverance and resilience, and these are qualities that everyone needs to develop. The next sign of toxicity is when they only talk about themselves. Toxic people are often self-centered, and they dominate conversations by only talking about themselves and their own experiences. They may not care about what others have to say, and they certainly do want to listen to anyone else's opinions or perspectives. Instead, they just want to tell you about their own life and what's going on with them. It can be exhausting and frustrating to talk to someone like this, especially when they never ask about you or show any interest in your life. And it can make the relationship feel one-sided and unbalanced. So what do you do when faced with this type of person? Well, firstly, don't try to compete with them or try to make them listen to you. It won't work. Instead, politely steer the conversation back to them and let them keep talking. Ask follow-up questions to show that you're re-listening, and then summarize what they've said to demonstrate that you understand their perspective. Lastly, set boundaries. Don't be afraid to excuse yourself from the conversation if it's becoming too overwhelming or one-sided. Remember, it's okay to prioritize your own needs and to protect your own emotional well-being. And finally, the last sign of toxicity is when they're bad news magnet. There are some people who seem to be constantly surrounded by problems and drama no matter where they go. It's like they can't escape their own bad luck, and it can be incredibly draining and stressful to be around them because you're constantly having to offer support and understanding. A toxic person often finds it difficult to maintain healthy relationships or to succeed in their personal or professional life. They may find themselves in toxic relationships or surrounded by negative people who bring them down. And this can make it challenging to break free from the cycle of toxicity and drama. It can be difficult to deal with someone who's constantly surrounded by problems, but it is possible. The first step is to acknowledge the situation and to understand that you and control other people as behavior or outcomes. Next, set boundaries. Do you and T be afraid to say no if you're being asked to do too much? Or to take on too much responsibility? Remember, you're not responsible for fixing other people's problems. Finally, focus on self-care. Make sure to prioritize your own needs and to take time for yourself to relax and recharge. These are 6 signs of toxicity that we need to be on the lookout for in the people around us. Now, recognizing these signs is the first step towards creating healthier and more fulfilling relationships. Sometimes it can be tough to spot these signs of toxicity, especially if the person is someone we care about and want to trust. But it's important to remember that just because someone exhibits some of these behaviors doesn't mean they're a bad person. Everyone has their own struggles and weaknesses, and it's important to approach every situation with empathy and understanding. But if we suspect that someone is toxic, it's important to take the necessary steps to protect ourselves and our own well-being. We owe it to ourselves to surround ourselves with positive, supportive people who bring out the best in us and help us grow as individuals. If you found this video helpful, please like it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these 6 signs of toxicity? Have you experienced any of them yourself? Or maybe you've noticed them in someone you know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you know anyone who could benefit from this video, please share it with them. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.